So you see how she looks, right? Well, you see how this other lady looks, right? Let's go and see how she looks. Her right here. So you see how she looks and you see how she looks, right? These are the main this is how the people who are doing all the majority of the talking for people of African descent in America, right? It's majority people who look like them. They're basically octoroons, right? They're not maroons. They're octoroons. And you say, well, who were the people who were enslaved, right? Who had to do all the free labor over the years and over the years throughout the antebellum, throughout the Victorian era, throughout the Golden Age, throughout the traditional and the silent era, who had to do all the work. And you look at the images of the sharecroppers, it's clearly maroons, right? But when you see what happened after everybody started to mix, after the colonies were done and finished, right? All the work had been done, right? Now you see a people of Welsh descent, right? Because you look at her, right? She's clearly Welsh and black, right? You see Welsh people and black people, right? Come from all these different bands throughout America because, blacks are the original English. So you look at that and you say, well, how did all this become? Well, again, like if you look at who people are and you take from where they've been and how they've kind of sorted into, right? You see the ES on the last of Hayes, well, that denotes Spanish, you know. You see HA and Y, well, that denotes breaking, right? Hebrew, or what you would call a joining of the two, right? New York and England, that's basically what that means. Hayes. This is how you have a maroon class and you have an octoroon class, which were created distinctively by the works of people who had come before Walter Pleckert and after, with the whole mixing conclusion. Because like you haven't seen as many dark skinned people in America since what, the 1960s, you know? Like name me a show where you just saw, where it was just like all black people, right? That you could relate to and just kind of look at it like, wow, this is actually happening around me. I can relate to this. It wasn't living. It wasn't living single. What was, it wasn't Bill Cosby show. It really wasn't Family Matters. It definitely wasn't Martin. It definitely wasn't the Wayans. You know what I mean? Like name a show where you just felt like, this represents the maroon class. You know what I mean? So all of this that Walter Pleckett had done, it was to annihilate the maroon class and finally defeat Empress Nanny. Essentially, right? When you look at all the colonies, right? It wasn't about tobacco. It wasn't about cotton. It was about slave breeding. That's basically what it was about. When you look at all the colonies, the 13 colonies, if these colonies still existed, the colonies have expanded, right? They just took it out the textbook. So right now you have this lady, Linda, I think her name is Linda McMahon or something like that. She's being grilled by this hearing, this committee, because the Department of Education failed. Well, she's not going to go to jail behind what happened. She's not. It's Roland Marsh's job to make it seem like something is getting done from Democrats, while the Republicans are the enemy, which they aren't doing anything either. So it's his job to make it seem like they're getting things done. So you see the two main people who are representing what happened to the Maroons. The fact that they got wiped out of existence through slave breeding, which they mildly interrupt and kind of make it seem like, oh, it was they gave them chicken pox blankets and smallpox blankets and all that crap. No, it wasn't that. It was because you had the colonies who were coming down from Europe and they were mixing in with the the Aboriginal people. They were mixing in with them. They were mixing in with them. They didn't go down to Africa and colonize them. You see what I mean? They didn't do that. So like you got to really think about that and say like, how did all of this happen? How? How did all of this happen? So she's speaking for Maroon people. It's no one in the hearing who's holding custodialship speaking for Maroons. I don't see Tim Scott. Maybe he's there, but I don't see him. I don't see Garland Gilchrist. I don't see none of these people. It's this woman right here and the other woman. So you got to really think about that, right? What are they trying to put before the people who suffered through slavery and the effects of slavery? Person may say, well, you didn't go through that. You didn't go through that. You living in 2025. Well, I'm a descendant of those people, right? I'm affected largely by what happened. I don't have a community of my own where everybody have a mono morphism or a monomorphic type of view on things, right? Where you can block people from trading with you, or you can use their strength and say, you know what, we're going to set up a colony. We have enough men. We have enough prowess. We have a constitution where we can set up on Lake Michigan, right? We can't do that, right? Who's our mayor for, Cleveland? Who's our mayor for Detroit, right? You see that there's an underlying factor there, right? Well, you may have a black mayor in Cleveland, right? But, there's a white mayor in a place like Detroit, or a white mayor in a place like Flint, or a white mayor in a place like Saginaw. You can't do anything. This is why when most of the cities get worked on, right? Forget about the Department of Education, right? Teaching starts at home. The teaching starts at home. So you look at a place like, some of these places, and you say, well, what's really happening with, the people? Like, why aren't they, what's really happening with them? And you can see that it's a result of what happened in the 1800s, the 1700s, and the 1600s. It's a result of that. It's a result of that. So, she would be dismissed to even think that, I can speak for the Maroon class. She would be dismissed to think that, right? She would be extremely dismissed to think that. So I'm not sure what people are thinking, man, but I think Maroons, we really gotta step up, because we're going to get the brunt of all of this. We're going to get the brunt of it if we keep doing the things that we're doing, and allowing the things to kind of be the way that they are, through outmixing and out influence. If we keep doing those things, man, we're going to be in a world of trouble, man. Her ties isn't to Maroons. Her ties is to her people only. You know what I mean? People just got to understand that, it's nothing to be ashamed about. It's nothing to be confused about. It's just a sense, right? If I looked a certain way and I said, you know what, I'm going to fare with my other side, it's nothing wrong with that, right? And that's not her job to do that, right? This is why nothing hasn't gotten done. This is why Governor Westmore did shoot down that bill. When you think about, the reparations study bill, he shot it down. Even if, he felt like he would have been wasting money, it's not up to him to say we're wasting money. You got to let the public decide, right? You got to let the public decide. And if he was honest, he'll say, I'll let the Maroons decide. Because, again, he has a Jamaican background as well, so he should know. Great peace, Yakoki.